Hello, my name is George, and today I'm going to address some repeated arguments I see coming up, speaking against the Western Rite. I'm going to try to do this in one take because I don't want to spend all day re-recording videos. So forgive me if I mess up or stutter or whatever. I'm not really used to doing content creation is not really my thing. So forgive me if this is less than perfect, but I felt the need to make this comprehensive video addressing this argument to hopefully put it to bed because every time I hear about somebody talking about the Western Rite and why they're against it, or are we sure we're ready for the Western Rite like it was just created yesterday? It's kind of annoying to us who are especially us who are in Lazarus, I think you can kind of relate. Like, you're an Alta server, I'm an Alta server too. If somebody starts attacking your church, how are you going to feel? And I realize that you're not trying to attack my church personally. It's not really a personal thing altogether, but it's really tiring. Like, it's really old. It's kind of I want to just answer it simply and be like, if you don't like the Western Rite, just don't go to one. Like, just stay your Eastern Rite parishes. Like, that's fine. Like, I don't know why you feel the need to as laity to make decisions on the level of the bishop when the bishops know better. Like, I can even admit that I don't have enough knowledge in nothing in comparison to what the bishops know. They have the appropriate context, they have the appropriate knowledge and the wisdom to execute on their job successfully. So why do the laity continue to proceed to argue these kind of useless polemics? Maybe I'm not using the right word there, but these make these useless arguments about, oh, whether the Western Rite Orthodox is right or this is right. It's like, as soon as people get into the stages of being a catechumen, not even being Orthodox yet, and the same thing was with myself, honestly. I can't, I'm pointing a finger at everybody else. I'm also pointing a finger at myself because I was like this. I don't know what it is. We all turn into, we learn about Orthodox history and catechism, and we all turn into heresy hunters. Oh, you're a heretic. Oh, you tried to use the wrong analogy to describe the Trinity. You're a heretic. And it's crazy, guys. Like, I've been to a lot of churches, Protestant. I was raised Catholic. I've been in Protestant churches. I've been in Orthodox churches. And granted, this is all just online, but I've never seen a church more divided than the Orthodox Church on the dumbest of issues, like the dumbest of issues. Um, and granted, some issues are more serious than others, right? Like that people are talking about online. You'll get a lot of people who claim to be Western Rite in order to use that as a vehicle for spreading their heresy. And so what people look at these people who really don't go to a Western Rite parish, who aren't really Western Rite, and they'll try to espouse some heretical nonsense infant damnation. And we don't believe that as a Western Rite. As a Western Rite altar server, as a Western Rite official Orthodox, um, lady who's been Orthodox for maybe a year and a half now. Actually, no, I've been interested in Orthodoxy for over about 2 years, and I've been officially Orthodox for about a year now. I can say with wholeheartedness, being in the Western Rite, that we do not believe in that. And if somebody comes out with a damnable heresy that is something that is clearly not orthodox, then it's not Western Rite, because our theology, the whole basis on the Western Rite being created, is that it would be orthodox. It would just be a different, separate liturgical format that would be more familiar to people who used to be Anglican. It was actually formed as in a response to um, old Catholics and Anglicans wanting to become Orthodox, but without wanting to be Byzantinized. They're just the Byzantine liturgy. There are certain things about it that are just people are averse to it, or not really necessarily averse to it, but just too unfamiliar with it. and there's a certain level of ethnocentrism. But I'll get into all that. I got a whole thing for you, so I'll try not to take too much of your time. But let's listen to this video real quick, and we'll address the arguments.
The title I'm not entirely certain yet, but it's probably going to be something along the lines of "Are we truly ready for a Western Rite?" And I will explain one small thing which I think could maybe.
Again, the Western Rite was created in the 1800s. Now, granted, I know it's not as old as Orthodoxy, but it's a reconstruction of the liturgical format as it was before the schism. Now, you're probably going to be like, well, they got some of their liturgical cues from Anglicanism with the Book of Common Prayer. If you're going for the liturgy of Saint Tikhon, because the liturgy of Saint Gregory is more the Roman Rite. It's a reconstruction of pre-schism Rome. Now, the Anglicans, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but they take a lot of their liturgical cues from pre-schism Rome as well. So you'd see why they would borrow from those elements to create this reconstruction. And let's not get it twisted. The Eastern Rite wasn't some like God given, like it was inspired by the Holy Spirit by people who wrote these liturgical formats, like John Chrysostom. It was inspired by the Holy Spirit, but like it was an evolution. It wasn't something that was just handed down. Here you go. Here's exactly how you do the liturgy in a standard format. No changes. Everything's the same. That's not how it evolved. It evolved as simple Eucharistic prayers that developed over the centuries and then got standardized. And everybody back before the schism, every country had their own little tweaks. Like he says, he's going to say at the beginning of this video, they have their own little ways of going about exercising the liturgy.
Down the road a proper video. So on Twitter, for those that follow my Twitter, which is Zarek, I once had a tweet that was saying that one of the things that might help with the issue of the feeling of Orthodoxy not really being Western would be if we had our own extra liturgical traditions.
And that's what we did.
Now, for the sake of simplicity, and not wanting to keep you too long, every country's jurisdiction has one. And what I mean is, I'm referring to things like the Serbian Slava, the Georgian Supra. That's a quick reference. The Macedonians also use the what's it called? Also use the Slava. But I was also thinking, and so outside of America,
Notice how he just brings up the Georgians and the Ukrainians, and he doesn't bring up the West. That's not the West. That's still the East, and they have their own twist on the liturgical tradition. It's still the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, of course, but they do things slightly differently there. They have certain traditions that are different from other countries, and that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The core, the essence is still there. It's still the same. It's still Orthodox. Now, who doesn't have their own extra liturgical traditions or their own twist on the liturgy or their own type of Western liturgy? The Orthodox, the American Orthodox, didn't have that prior to the creation of the Western Rite. And now that we have that, like now all of a sudden it's a problem. And I think it really just comes down to people saying West bad, West is bad, like everything Western is bad. And that's not true. Like there's nothing, if you were to actually go to a Western Rite Orthodox liturgy, there's nothing heretical there. There's nothing quote unquote bad there. Like what's bad? Is it the reading of the chanting of the Psalms? Is it the hymn that we do to Mary? Well, some people will say, well, you don't have an akathist. We don't have an akathist as you know it, like as your standard, but we do have hymns to Mary and we do have hymns to Jesus Christ. And what is an akathist? It is a specific hymn to Jesus Christ or Mary or the saints, as was added later on. It wasn't originally part of the Orthodox liturgy. Later on, they added akathist to various saints. But we have our own form of a hymn and a dedication to Jesus, Mary, and the saints. Um, and we stand during those too. It's one of those details that I know somebody's going to pick apart. Well, you don't stand for the act, you don't stand for your hymns like we stand for the activists. No, we stand during our hymns.
who has Thanksgiving. We don't really have candidates that are, well, traditions that could be used for such. Whether that's one, reviving ancient Orthodox traditions, or two, stealing, Western traditions that could actually be Orthodox, or that could actually be baptized as such. Um, and off the top of my head, I was
It was Orthodox though. The everything that we've taken, oh my God, everything we've taken from pre-schism Rome, all the liturgical traditions, the liturgy of Saint Gregory, that was Orthodox up to a certain point because Rome decided to insert the filioque and papal infallibility and papal supremacy. Vatican I and II. So there's nothing like new. Again, there's nothing new here. There's no new development. We're not creating something new. Um, though with the right disposition, with the um, I think if we were to develop something, if our bishops were to develop something specifically for the West, it's something that could be done. It's not like unheard of because again, the Eastern Rite liturgy didn't start as like this perfect standard uniform liturgy that you recognize now. It was something that was developed over the centuries. So who's to say the same thing can't happen here in America for the West? Something that's more recognizable by people here in America. But I digress. This is nothing new.
thinking, well, that, and going down along the list line, are we truly ready for a Western Rite? When
Yes, we are.
most Western countries don't really have any clue of how they would have their own, of what their extra liturgical tradition would be. Obviously, you could also just say we could just steal it.
Well, that's because we're in the process of just actually getting more Americans to be Orthodox. And that's like the whole goal, right? That's the whole reason that we even bothered to create a westernized liturgical format um, for the West, for here, for America, for Anglicans and Old Catholics and Catholics who want to convert. Um, we don't want them to bring their theology, but we want them to have a certain level of familiarity so that they actually feel at home in the church and not feel like an outsider. Like I'm gonna be honest, like I went to a Greek Eastern Rite liturgy for the first time. It was absolutely beautiful. I have no regrets about going there. It was the best thing. It was the best thing for my spiritual life, for anything to happen to me. I've been to numerous Protestant churches, like I mentioned before. I was born and raised Catholic, somewhat, and I have never felt more at peace at home than I have going to my first Orthodox liturgy. That said, everyone was Greek. Literally everyone. There were some new converts that came in later on, but you go to coffee hour and everybody's talking to everybody who's familiar with each other and to try to like actually meet new people and make friends in the church and it's not as important to the liturgy, but it's important to feeling at home in a church because when you feel at home in a church, you want to put more effort into your spiritual life as a direct result. So I kind of felt not I don't want to use the word ostracized because I didn't feel ostracized. There were a few people that tried to welcome me in as best as they possibly can, including the priest, but it's just a situation that couldn't be helped when you're like 99% Greek and 1% Puerto Rican in my case. So, you know, it's everybody's speaking a different language and they're speaking the Greek language during portions of the liturgy. Now, granted, sometimes every once in a while we'll do Latin, but we always have the English translations in the Western Rite. So it's not like anybody's lost, but there are certain periods where in the Greek liturgy where I was just completely lost. Like he said something complicated in Greek, and I'm like, whoa, what did he say about my mother just now? Like I don't know. Like Greek is when I go to learn Greek, it is going to be probably one of the most difficult languages I could probably learn. I'm going to be honest because it sounds complicated. Anyway, we'll go on.
from insert group here, or westernize Y, which is still valid, but still. And then I was thinking that this is something that you don't really hear too much regarding the Western Rite. So, when we can't even sort that out, are we truly ready for an entire liturgy?
Okay, he loses me here. Sort what out? What are we sorting out? The fact that the Western Rite is not no. Well, yeah, it's small. It's still small. It's still growing. It's still in its infant stages. It's still expanding. And, you know, if anecdotal testament were to be any proof or evidence, more people are finding out that the Western Rite Orthodox do actually exist. There is a Western Rite in Orthodoxy, and there are more people enrolling into the Antiochian House of, is it the Antiochian House of Studies? The seminarian school, more people are in seminary under the Western Rite program than there used to be. So that tells me these are people that are going to go out, be priests, deacons, subdeacons, and they're going to serve more parishes and that they're going to expand and create more parishes. So give it like, 20 years even. Like Western Rite Orthodoxy will expand, but you actually have to give it a chance and stop trying to shut it down in its infancy. If people had reacted the same way and tried to well, actually, they did. There were people that actually tried to shut down Orthodoxy in its infancy. His name was Nero.
Rite, which includes scrapping, replacing, changing things like the Akathist's canons, the way you do morning and evening prayers.
What's what's the problem with the way that we do our morning and evening prayers? Is it like he anytime somebody goes into arguments like this, it's always very vague and wishy-washy and like generalizations and are like, what is the way, what, because we recite our prayers in King James English? What is the issue here? Like we are still praying to the Lord. Um, we're still using the Psalms. We actually use the Psalms before we go are ready for communion, the night before, we are reciting the 7 penitential psalms. We do or are supposed to do morning and evening prayer. I'm not perfect about that, honestly, but I try my best. I at least do the evening prayer, if nothing else. Um, Not only do we have the option of doing the morning and evening prayers from the St. Ambrose or St. Gregory Western Rite prayer book, but we also have the office. We have the office from the monastic diurnal, and we have multiple office hours that we could be doing prayers. I don't think anybody sticks to that perfectly because it's what monastics typically do. So, that most of their life is dedicated to liturgics and prayer. So for us common people who are working and have a full schedule, that's not always easy to pull off, but we have the option of doing that. We have the option of doing the full office, which includes psalms, which includes what we call psalms that where we praise God, we call lauds. Um, we have, and it's done. The lauds are done during a certain type of day, and then we have um, psalms that we recite at other hours, and we have hymns. Like again, I don't see what the issue is here. I really don't. I really have never gotten it, and it's because people make these like generalizations um, that they just have no. It's really an argument out of ignorance. I don't want to be mean here or anything like that, but it's like go to a Western Rite liturgy, actually know what you're talking about. If you're really adamant about arguing against the Western Rite liturgics, be willing to like I'm nobody. Like, and be honest with you. Like, I don't know shit. Excuse my language. Like, I still am a newbie at this. Like, I know enough. I know enough to make this video, but as far as the grand scheme of things that the grand scheme of knowledge that can be acquired in the spiritual life, like there are people that in my church that know way more than me. Like argue with those people. Like I've talked with people who are supremely anti-Western Rite, and they made all the same arguments you're making. Oh, you don't have an act this. Oh, you don't have the same spiritual rigor. Blah blah blah. And when I called them up to debate or even have a discussion with my subdeacon, who knows way more than me, they, they copped out. Like they decided to just they don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, if you are, especially half of the Orthodox on this platform, you're so dedicated to arguing polemics, like half the time, half of your activity on X is arguing polemics, then you should be able to argue this. Like if you're this against the Western Rite and you're saying all these things, then you should be able to have a formalized debate on it. Now, I would say have a formalized debate with not with me because like I suck at debating and I don't know enough. I'll tell you that up and down. But there are people who are willing to debate, who are putting their time up for like, hey, I don't have a whole lot of free time, but I'll take some time. We'll schedule a time to get together and debate with you. I know people like that that are willing to debate. Nobody ever wants to take them up. Nobody ever wants to really like they just want to make these comments from the sidelines and nobody really wants to put their ideas up for scrutiny.
Having an entire liturgies and whatnot, um, when we don't actually have that unique tradition. Obviously, I also do look forward to hearing the response from the pro-Western right people. I know there are obviously mutuals on Twitter that I hope to send this to. Anyway, I appreciate you all stopping by and listening and watching this short.
Okay, so that pretty much covers the entirety. Like again, he's making an argument that just because it doesn't exist here in America, that we don't have a specific Western liturgy, that we shouldn't have a Western liturgy and we shouldn't develop one. And we have, again, we have Metropolitan, the Russian Synod. They all agreed upon um, creating this specific Western Rite liturgical format for the specific purpose of converting more people to Orthodoxy. Now, in my eyes, that's worth it. Like now, if my metropolitan, if my bishop, uh, Antioch says no more Western Rite, then I'll comply. Like I have no problem with that. Like they, again, these people know more than me. They have more wisdom than me. They've been doing this for a really long time. You know, who am I to say anything about it? But it exists. They approve of it. Our metropolitan is Metropolitan Saba. He approves of it, and he is actually trying to. Antioch as a whole, the Antiochian Western Rite Vicariate, is trying to expand Western Rite Orthodoxy throughout the Americas. So obviously they don't see a problem with it. My parish is continuously growing. Thank God. Glory to be to God. Um, I pray for it every night. I pray for my parish's success all the time because it's a small parish. We don't have a lot of money at all. Um, we're reliant on donations from the congregants and donations to our Give, Send, Go, which I'll link in this video, um, to repair the giant crack we have in the supporting wall. I think it's a supporting wall in the basement on the western side, or I'm sorry, the east wall. And it's a building that's been around since 1908. It's withstood storms. It's almost got hit by a tornado, and it's withstood the test of time. And we should do everything that we can to keep that building alive, and to keep this mission alive, because I believe in it. Um, but anyway, I will link that. That's for St. Mary's Orthodox Mission in Deloge, Missouri. I will link the Give, Send, Go at the end of this video. So, sorry, this is turning out to be a little long. Um, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. It's a document I prepared. Um, So, preface: Western Rite Orthodoxy was developed as a means of restoring the ancient liturgical heritage of the pre-schism Western Church within the fullness of the Orthodox faith. As Western Christians sought to enter Orthodoxy, the Church, in her pastoral wisdom, permitted the use of historically Western forms, carefully corrected to reflect Orthodox theology, so that converts can retain their liturgical identity without compromising doctrine. Far from being an innovation, the Western Rite is a recovery of what what was once fully Orthodox, demonstrating that the faith of the Church transcends any single cultural or liturgical expression. Western Rite Orthodoxy is a synodal development of the Church initiated under Saint Tikhon and the Russian Synod, and later affirmed and expanded by saints such as Saint John Maximovich. Should put a saint there. I don't know why that's not there. Um, and the Antiochian Orthodox hierarchy. It emerged as a pastoral response to the Anglicans and Old Catholics who sought entry into Orthodoxy while preserving their authentic Western liturgical heritage. So here's when I was kind of preparing this paper, because I wanted some kind of script because I know I'm going to get ADHD and start going off on tangents. Um, my initial thoughts when making this was this: the typical American lacks a certain familiarity with Eastern Orthodoxy and the Byzantine traditions therein. Thus, it is logical to use the Western form of an Orthodox liturgy to appeal to Westerners, specifically those in the UK and America who would be more familiar with Catholicism and Protestantism and really Anglicanism. Uh, Observation I've made: most EO churches, now I've been to Eastern Orthodox churches in multiple states, and I can tell you that most Eastern Orthodox churches are primarily located in metropolitan areas or heavily ethnocentric. Besides what I've already stated, why else is that a problem? Well, you have people who live out in the country like I do, um, where if my church that's currently there didn't exist, um, I would have to drive an hour or 2 hours to my closest church. I think it would probably be like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Problem is, I can't drive, so I'm blind in my right eye and I'm 20/70 in my left, which means I cannot drive. So I basically would be kind of shit out of luck. So I wouldn't be going to an Orthodox church at this point. I wouldn't be Orthodox yet because I've gotten baptized in St. Mary's, and so I would be pretty screwed. And I'm sure that a lot of people have probably found themselves in this situation at one point or another and had to move or um, had to drive if they can drive an hour or two. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that kind of schedule to be able to do that. So, and I've noticed most of these metropolitan Eastern Orthodox churches, um, whether it's Serbian, whether it's Greek, whether it's Russian, whether it's Ukrainian, these are like in Greek, Ukrainian, Serbian communities, like where a lot of those, specifically those type of people live and where they attend church. So it's going to be very like it's going to feel very ethnocentric, even if they're welcoming and stuff like that. The fact that they're using a language that most Westerners are not familiar with is going to throw a lot of people off. I'm sure there are traditions that are very unfamiliar that's going to throw a lot of people off. So this is why I say that the Western liturgy is going to be it's more going to appeal to um, people specifically because they recognize the elements of it that seem a bit Catholic or that seem a bit Protestant. Well, probably not Protestant today because Protestant today is you know guitars and smoke fog machines and yeah. It's the Protestantism today is not the Protestantism of yesteryear. Is not what it used to be when Martin Luther started the Protestant Reformation. So there are those that claim the Western Rite lacks the same rigor as the Eastern Rite. I roll my eyes whenever I hear this argument. I would argue that it's actually the opposite. In Lent, Eastern Rite parishioners are expected to abstain from meat, marital relations, olive oil. Why did I put a comma between olive and oil? alcohol, cheese, milk, and eggs on every day of Lent. In the Western Rite, we have most of these abstinence rules as well, with the exception of milk and eggs. However, we are expected to only eat one meal a day with two snacks, no more than a fourth of a meal, known as a collation, as an easement to the struggle of this limitation. Many people have a lot of trouble just eating one meal a day. We also, I didn't write this down, but we also have the black fast, which is, I don't know if they have that in the Eastern Rite. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the Western Rite has the black fast, which I think it's the day before um, we break the fast, like 24 hours before you go without anything, like any food. You can have water, but if you want to do this in the strictest sense, you would just have vinegar. So you just would have no food or water whatsoever. Nothing for 24 hours. I haven't been brave enough to try this yet. Maybe I will in the future. People are also under the mistaken impression that Western Rite Orthodox sit for the duration of the liturgy, which is incorrect, as is the impression that all Eastern Rite Orthodox stand the entire time, which is also incorrect. I've been to multiple Eastern Rite parishes, and I can assure you they absolutely do not. The first Greek Eastern Rite church I've been to is in Houston, Texas, has pews for everyone, not just the elderly. They're in the center of the nave, like where you would normally have pews in, like, say, a Catholic church. Is not like on the side like you're probably thinking in your head for like elderly. No, it's not just for elderly, it's for everyone. And everyone is expected to sit at certain times during the liturgy, and everyone is expected to stand at certain times of the liturgy. And when we're doing it's a specific type of vesper service, and I can't think of the solemn vespers, we're expected to kneel in the Greek church. And in the Western Rite Church, um, if we do solemn, I don't know if we do solemn vespers or if it's called something different. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I lack some knowledge here in this department. Um, but we kneel during a few times when we open during the opening of the office, um, and we stand uh, during the so yeah, so we stand and then we sit after the first line of the psalm is said. So we chant the first line, sit, and then sit until the line previous to the glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit, and then we're expected to stand. So we're all reading our books and we're all attentive and we're all chanting. Everybody's That's another difference is between the Eastern Rite and the Western Rite. In the Western Rite, I don't know if it's the same. I don't know if it's here specifically at my church because we're a smaller church. I don't know if this is everywhere, but in our church, it's kind of encouraged that everybody sings along, everybody chants. Because we lack a choir, because the altar servers and the subdeacon are really the only ones. Sometimes we have a chanter or a professional chanter that comes out and chants with us, but primarily it's altar servers and subdeacon John that does the singing. Um, so everybody's expected to follow along, and it maintains a certain level of like alertness. Your mind doesn't is less prone to drifting off. I know a lot of people have made the argument, or some people I've watched have made the argument that because you're sitting, you're more prone to drifting off. Not if you're actively trying to follow along with the liturgy and chant along with it. And everybody has the books. Everybody has the psalms and the tones that the psalms are sung in, and the hymns and the tones that the hymns are sung in, and the entire service is encompassed in a book that everybody is chanting from. So everybody should be following along. There shouldn't be anybody like kind of browsing their phone and kind of playing games on their phone or doing whatever. From what I've seen, everybody's very attentive and participating in the liturgy. Anyway, getting back to the point. Um, so we've established that universally, it's not true that every Eastern Rite stands the entire liturgy. Um, it's not true that every Western Rite sits. There are various portions of the liturgy of which we sit or stand. We stand during the hymns. We usually sit during the we sit during the epistle reading, but everything else we stand for. So really, the bulk of our time that we spend sitting, we're also chanting the psalms. And then once it comes up to the portion where it says, "Glory to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit," we not only are we standing, but we bow, and then we don't sit back down until the first line of the next psalm is read. So moving on, Saint John Maximovich validated the Western Rite as a valid expression of worship. He upheld the Orthodox theology fully while embracing the Western liturgical heritage and performed miracles recognized across the church. Also, another argument that I hear, and that this gentleman had posed, is the akathist. I don't know why this is such a deal breaker for people. Um, we don't have the akathist as in the sense that it is the way it's standardized in the Eastern Rite. Like we have hymns. All an akathist is a hymn, a devotion to Jesus Christ and Mary. And then later on in in the development of the Eastern Rite, you added where they added the hymns or akathist to various saints. So we do have hymns, and we do stand for those hymns um, while we sing those. So I don't understand where this argument is coming from. So the claim that Western Rite Orthodoxy lacks akathist misunderstands the issue. An akathist is simply not a hymn to Christ or the Theotokos, it is a specific Byzantine liturgical form. The Western tradition developed its own forms of hymnody which fulfill the same theological and devotional function. Western Rite liturgies include extensive Marian hymnography, Christ-centered devotional hymns, structured offices with repeated praise and theological reflection. Therefore, the absence of the Byzantine akathist form does not mean the absence of equivalent devotion. It simply reflects a difference in liturgical expression. To claim otherwise is to confuse form with substance. This supports the idea that holiness and sacramental grace are not dependent on liturgical style. And I want to explain some of the ways that we are actually the same. The things that we have in common because we're not as different as people would lead you to believe. So Western Rite Orthodoxy is not fundamentally different, at least structurally, from the Eastern Rite or Byzantine Rite, but rather represents a variation in a liturgical expression that preserves the same theological core. Shared Eucharistic theology. Both rites affirm that the Eucharist becomes the true body and blood of Christ. Again, same Orthodox dogma, same theology. The difference lies not in belief, but in emphasis. Western forms historically highlight the words of institution, while Eastern forms emphasize the epiclesis. Western Rite Orthodoxy explicitly restores the epiclesis, aligning it fully with Eastern theology. Same apostolic structure. Both liturgies contain the same essential components: preface, sanctus, institution, epiclesis, intercessions, doxology. This demonstrates a continuity in structure, not divergence. Restoration, not innovation. The Western Rite Orthodoxy is not creating something new, but restoring pre-schism Western liturgical forms that were originally Orthodox. Adjustments such as removing the filioque and adding a clear epiclesis bring the rite back into alignment with the undivided church. Difference in expression, not essence. The Western Rite tends to be more linear and restrained, while the Eastern Rite tends to be more poetic and expansive. These are stylistic differences, not theological contradictions. Unified sacramental understanding. Both traditions offer the same sacrifice, invoke the same Trinity, participate in the same mystery. Thus, the rites are different in form but identical in sacramental reality. Balanced view of consecration. Western Rite Orthodoxy explicitly affirms both the words of institution and the act of the Holy Spirit. This creates a synthesis that reflects the fullness of Orthodox Eucharistic theology rather than a departure from it. Conclusion: Western Rite Orthodoxy should be understood as a legitimate and historically grounded expression of Orthodox worship. The differences between Western and Eastern rites are primarily differences of emphasis, language, and style, not differences of faith. And here's a small chart that kind of explains the institution-centered institution-centeredness of the Roman Rite between the Eastern emphasis of the Eastern Rite. So I'll just say, as some final thoughts, uh, actually get yourself, if you actually are adamant and you're not just kind of spitting into the wind here, and you're actually adamant about challenging the Western Rite, or if you have questions about the Western Rite, I would encourage you to take the time instead of just making posts on Twitter saying things that are categorically untrue or making joke. Like, I understand like what he posted originally was a joke. Him posting this video on like some Protestant, like probably Pentecostal, extreme Pentecostal doing like, fake miracles here. Like, instead of making jokes like this, if you're really curious, if you really want to know and you're not just kind of trying to stir the pot here, which sometimes I get the feeling that some of these people are just trying to stir the pot. That's what it really feels like. But if you really have questions, go go to one. Now, I can understand if you don't have one near you, then I would encourage that you watch a liturgy from I think it's St. Patrick's. He live streams Father John Fenton. I would encourage you to watch a liturgy from Father John Fenton. I would encourage you to watch a liturgy from Father David McCready, and if you look them up, you should be able to find their respective parishes. And I know the former streams. I don't know if the latter streams. So you should be able to watch one of their liturgies and kind of break it down and run a comparison in your head between the Eastern Rite and the Western Rite, and then actually form some like actual well-formed arguments. Because I'm gonna be honest, I had to watch this video a couple of times to truly understand, like really grasp at what your argument actually was, because it just sounded like a lot of apprehension and being like, well, are we truly ready for the Western Rite? I'm like, dude, it's been here. I'm sorry you're just catching up, but like it's been here. Like it's if you truly don't like it, if you truly explored it and you've done your research, you've done your homework, you have legitimate, like well-founded reasons why you don't like it, a better explanation than what you gave here, and you have some experience with it, like you've been to a parish or you've watched a liturgy, then come out with a better, more structurally sound, you know, longer video explaining your reasons in like a list format. I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with this. Otherwise, like it's really hard to like most of the Orthodox Western Rite Orthodox arguments or anti-Western Rite arguments I hear are very like I know based on feelings. It really just feels like it's just based on personal feelings. Well, I don't like this or I don't think this is right, but none of it is based on like rational thought or like well-formed arguments, which is why it's really easy to like debunk any claims made by people who are trying to talk against the Western Rite. But anyway, I've taken up enough of your time. This has been George the Dragon Slayer, and I am out.